The fluorescent lights flickered above the emergency ward as nurses rushed a stretcher down the corridor. On it lay a young woman, her chest heaving, her face frozen in an eerie expression of laughter. The sound was wrong, high-pitched, hollow, endless. It echoed down the hallway like a sinister chorus, making doctors exchange alarmed glances. Something about her laughter felt deadly. A nurse tried to hold her shoulders still, but the convulsions of laughter shook her body violently. Her nails dug into the sheets, her lips cracked from the strain, and yet the sound poured out, relentless, terrifying. One resident whispered, "This isn't normal. This is killing her." But nobody dared to say it aloud. Laughter had never looked so much like death. Machines beeped in warning tones as her oxygen levels dropped. Sweat dripped down her temples, glistening under the cold hospital lights. "We're losing her!" shouted a doctor. The laughter slowed for a moment, only to erupt again, with a force that seemed inhuman. This wasn't comedy. This was something far darker. Her mother clutched the bedrail, tears spilling as she begged, "Please, stop laughing, please." But the young woman's eyes rolled back, her body stiffened, and in that instant the laughter cut off completely. Silence filled the room. Her chest stopped rising. A nurse checked her pulse. There was none. And just when the team began resuscitation, something even stranger happened. Her lips twitched, forming the ghost of a smile, as if mocking death itself. The medical staff froze in disbelief. How could laughter lead to this? And what they discovered next would horrify the entire hospital. It began as an ordinary evening in a small suburban home where 22-year-old Emily had gathered with friends to watch a comedy show. What started as innocent laughter quickly spiraled into something terrifying. She laughed harder than anyone else, unable to stop, her body shaking as if seized by invisible chains. No one realized these uncontrollable fits were the first signs of a rare neurological storm. Emily had always been healthy, a university student full of life, her laughter contagious at every gathering. But lately, her family noticed something unsettling. Once she started laughing, she couldn't stop. Even in serious situations, she would burst out uncontrollably, leaving everyone uncomfortable. At first it seemed quirky, then it became frightening. That night, when her laughter grew sharper and her face flushed purple, panic replaced amusement. Her breathing became shallow, her voice hoarse, yet the laughter tore through her throat like a weapon. Terrified, her friends dialed emergency services, realizing this was no ordinary reaction. It was the beginning of a medical nightmare. Doctors later linked Emily's condition to a bizarre and extremely rare neurological disorder, one in which laughter acts not as joy, but as a symptom of the brain misfiring in dangerous ways. Medical literature describes it as gelastic seizures, episodes that look harmless but can mask deadly consequences, including loss of consciousness and coma. Emily's case would soon push the boundaries of medical understanding, forcing her doctors into a race against time. Could laughter really silence life itself? And more importantly, could they bring her back from the brink? Before we dive deeper into this shocking case, make sure to subscribe, hit like, and comment what city and country you're watching from, so you never miss the next shocking story. Emily's strange journey began months before the night she was rushed into the ER. At first, the laughter came in bursts, short, random episodes that seemed harmless. During family dinners, she would suddenly laugh so hard that tears rolled down her cheeks, even when nothing funny had been said. Her parents thought it was stress, maybe even a quirky habit. But deep down, Emily felt something was terribly wrong. In lectures at her university, she struggled to maintain composure. A professor would mention a simple equation, and Emily's shoulders would shake with laughter, her hands covering her mouth to muffle the sound. Classmates whispered, teachers frowned. She felt humiliated, trapped inside a body that betrayed her at the worst possible moments. "Why can't I control this?" she whispered to herself one night, staring at her reflection, terrified. When the episodes began lasting longer, sometimes up to 15 minutes, Emily's family grew alarmed. Her mother kept a journal of every incident, noting the time of day, what Emily had been doing, and how long the laughter lasted. What stood out was the absence of any trigger. No jokes, no humor. The laughter was disconnected from reality, like a cruel signal fired from deep inside her brain. Finally, during one particularly violent fit, Emily collapsed to the floor, gasping for air between shrieks of laughter. Her father dialed emergency services, convinced his daughter was choking or having a heart attack. The paramedics who arrived were stunned. "We've never seen anything like this," one of them muttered, as Emily's body convulsed with hysterical laughter that no one in the room found funny. At the hospital, doctors initially suspected a psychological breakdown. They ordered basic labs, expecting signs of drug use, panic disorder, or even psychosis, but the tests came back clean. Emily's blood work was normal, her vital signs erratic, but not catastrophic. Still, her uncontrollable laughter shook the walls of the exam room. The medical staff exchanged nervous looks. Something else was at play, something they didn't yet understand. A neurologist was called in after a resident remembered reading about unusual seizure types in medical school. He requested an EEG, suspecting Emily's laughter might be neurological, not psychological. Electrodes were placed on her scalp, the monitor lighting up with activity. What they saw sent a chill through the room. Bursts of abnormal electrical discharges firing near her hypothalamus, each spike coinciding with a convulsion of laughter. The diagnosis was as shocking as it was rare: gelastic seizures, a condition where uncontrollable laughter is not joy, but a symptom of a neurological storm. The words hit Emily's parents like a thunderclap. Her mother covered her mouth, whispering, "Seizures? But she's awake. She's laughing." The neurologist explained grimly, "Her brain treats laughter like others treat convulsions, and if untreated, it can lead to catastrophic outcomes." Emily's case was complicated further by the discovery of a small lesion on her MRI. Hidden deep in her brain, near the hypothalamus, it appeared to be the source of the misfiring signals. Whether tumor, malformation, or scar tissue, it had turned laughter into a weapon against her body. "This isn't entertainment," the doctor said solemnly. "It's a ticking time bomb." The revelation left everyone shaken. Emily's laughter, once the symbol of her joy, had become the harbinger of something deadly. Her parents stared at the MRI images, unable to reconcile the bright, colorful scans with the daughter they knew. The medical team whispered about surgical risks, medication trials, and the possibility of irreversible damage. Nothing about this case was ordinary. It was a nightmare dressed in comedy. As Emily lay in her hospital bed, recovering from the battery of tests, her eyes welled with tears. "Will I ever be normal again?" she asked her nurse, who squeezed her hand but said nothing. The diagnosis was clear, the path forward uncertain. And just as the family began to absorb the shock, Emily's laughter erupted once more, louder, sharper, more dangerous. The doctors thought they had seen the worst. They were wrong. In the days after her diagnosis, Emily's health declined rapidly. The laughter no longer arrived in isolated bursts, but crashed into her life like waves, without warning, even in sleep. Each fit drained her body, leaving her trembling, drenched in sweat, and barely able to breathe. Nurses hovered nervously, recording plummeting oxygen levels, while her laughter echoed through the ward like something out of a nightmare. Doctors prescribed anti-seizure drugs, desperate to calm the firestorm in her brain. The relief was brief. Within hours, she erupted again, laughter cracking through her throat as her body jerked uncontrollably. Her heart rate spiked to dangerous levels, then dipped so suddenly alarms blared. "She can't survive many more of these," one physician muttered under his breath, eyes locked on the monitor. Her family kept vigil at her bedside. Her mother tried to spoon-feed her soup, only to watch Emily choke mid-bite when another violent episode struck. Her father stared helplessly at the floor, guilt etched across his face. The sound of her laughter, once their household's joy, now cut into their hearts like a cruel joke. It was no longer Emily laughing, it was the illness itself. At night, clusters of seizures came like storms. Emily would laugh until her lips turned blue, then collapse unconscious, only to wake moments later whispering, "Did I die?" The fear in her voice was sharper than any scalpel. Doctors warned that repeated seizures could permanently scar her brain, perhaps even shut it down completely. The neurology team gathered in a tense conference. MRI scans showed the lesion pressing near structures tied to memory and consciousness. If this escalates, she could slip into a coma, one specialist said gravely. Her parents froze, absorbing the weight of that single word. Every uncontrolled giggle now felt like a countdown toward catastrophe. Despite adjustments in medication, her episodes grew wilder. Once, while chatting calmly with a nurse, she suddenly doubled over, laughter tearing through her throat until her lips turned purple. For terrifying seconds, her pulse disappeared. The team revived her with oxygen, but whispers spread among staff. How much longer could her body endure this? The psychological toll was crushing. Emily admitted to her brother, voice shaking, "I'm not afraid of death. I'm afraid of laughing myself to death." Her words pierced him. Each smile seemed borrowed, each chuckle a reminder of how close she stood to the abyss. For the first time, laughter had become her executioner. Surgeons debated removing the lesion, but the risks were devastating. Loss of speech, memory, even identity. "We might save her body," one said quietly, "but lose the Emily you know." Her family agonized over the choice, caught between hope and horror. Every option carried a shadow that felt unbearable. Then one night alarms shrieked through the ward. Nurses found Emily slumped, lips blue, eyes vacant, frozen in a silent smile. A seizure had crushed her breathing. The team fought furiously to revive her, pulling her back from the brink. In that moment, her parents realized survival was no longer guaranteed. It was slipping further away with every episode. Just as the doctors believed they had stabilized her, another storm erupted. This time the seizure lasted longer, more violent than any before. Laughter thundered through the corridors, then suddenly cut off into chilling silence. The monitors screamed. Emily's body went limp. The doctors thought they had prepared for this. They hadn't. The silence that followed was deafening. Doctors swarmed around Emily, performing chest compressions as her parents clung to each other outside the room. Minutes stretched like hours until, with a final gasp, her chest rose again. Relief washed over the team, but their faces betrayed another truth. They could not keep pulling her back from death forever. Something had to change. That night, the lead neurologist pored over Emily's scans. He noticed subtle patterns, tiny bursts of abnormal activity radiating from a single point in the hypothalamus, like sparks from a faulty wire. "This is it," he whispered. "The laughter isn't random. It's being triggered by a focus we might be able to isolate." Hope flickered, fragile yet undeniable. A new test was ordered, a functional MRI performed during one of her seizures. As Emily convulsed with laughter inside the machine, screens lit up, revealing the exact moment her brain misfired. The lesion was small but vicious, hijacking her emotions like a cruel puppeteer. For the first time, the doctors had a clear target. The discovery divided the medical team. Some argued for immediate surgery, citing the growing risk of permanent brain damage. Others urged caution, fearing the procedure could strip Emily of her ability to speak or recognize her family. The tension in the room was palpable. "If we wait too long, she might never wake again," one surgeon warned. Emily's parents faced an impossible decision. Her mother sobbed, clutching Emily's hand. Her father, voice trembling, asked the neurologist, "If this were your daughter, what would you do?" The doctor paused, then answered with brutal honesty, "I'd take the risk. Because without intervention, she won't survive much longer." Meanwhile, Emily, though weak, listened to fragments of the debate. Between fits of laughter, she whispered, "I don't want to die like this. Do whatever it takes." Her courage struck everyone in the room. Even in her most fragile state, she fought for the chance to reclaim her life from the monster inside her brain. As the team prepared for a possible surgical intervention, an experimental alternative emerged. A visiting researcher suggested deep brain stimulation, implanting electrodes to calm the misfiring region. It was risky, untested in cases like Emily's, but it offered hope without cutting into delicate structures. Could this be the miracle she needed? Late that night, the doctors presented the options to Emily's family: high-risk surgery or experimental stimulation. Both carried terrifying risks. Both might fail. But doing nothing guaranteed disaster. The family stared at the papers before them, pens shaking in their hands. Outside the window, the hospital lights flickered like distant stars, indifferent to their agony. As dawn broke, Emily suffered another brutal seizure. This one left her barely conscious, her voice reduced to whispers. "Choose," she begged. "Don't let me disappear." The family, trembling, finally signed the consent. A new path had been chosen, one that could either save Emily or shatter her forever. Preparations began immediately. Surgeons scrubbed in, machines hummed to life, and Emily was wheeled toward the operating theater. Her parents followed until the doors closed, leaving them with nothing but hope and prayer. The team inside knew this was no ordinary operation. It was a battle between science and fate, and the outcome would shock them all. The surgical theater was bathed in cold, sterile light as Emily was placed under anesthesia. Her body, so often racked by unstoppable laughter, now lay eerily still. Surgeons reviewed the plan one last time. Attempt deep brain stimulation first. If it failed, they would proceed with direct removal of the lesion. It was a gamble with Emily's life, and the entire team felt the weight of it. Electrodes were carefully implanted into her brain, guided by real-time imaging. The goal was precise: calm the abnormal electrical storms that triggered her laughter. A hush fell over the room as the devices were activated. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the monitors showed subtle changes. The chaotic spikes slowed, replaced by steadier rhythms. The team exchanged hopeful glances. Could this be working? Minutes later, Emily's eyelids fluttered as she stirred under sedation. When prompted, she squeezed the surgeon's hand, but did not laugh. The silence was deafening and miraculous. For the first time in months, her brain seemed free from the grip of laughter. Tears welled in the eyes of a nurse who whispered, "She's quiet. Thank God she's finally quiet." But hope turned fragile when, hours later, Emily suffered a sudden relapse in the recovery ward. A violent fit of laughter tore through her chest, bending her body as alarms blared. The electrodes had dulled the storm, but not extinguished it. Doctors raced back into action, debating whether to increase stimulation or risk the surgical removal they had dreaded. Her father demanded answers, shouting, "You told us this would save her." The neurologist steadied his voice. "It's helping, but not enough. If we stop here, she will relapse until she slips away. Surgery may be our only chance to eliminate the source." The room fell into suffocating silence. Science was offering no guarantees, only risks stacked against risks. The surgical team prepared for the unthinkable: resection of the lesion. They explained the consequences bluntly. Emily might lose speech, memory, or parts of her personality. Her mother broke down sobbing, whispering, "I don't care if she forgets me. I just want her alive." With trembling hands, the family signed the consent once more. Back in the operating room, the surgeons cut deeper, guided by the glowing outlines on her MRI. Millimeter by millimeter, they approached the lesion that had hijacked Emily's laughter. Each move carried the weight of finality. Sweat beaded on foreheads as silence pressed in. Finally, the lead surgeon said, "We're at the center, removing it now." The mass was excised with painstaking precision, and for a long moment the monitors went silent, holding everyone's breath hostage. Then Emily's brain activity stabilized. The chaotic bursts that once fueled her seizures were gone. Relief flooded the room, but no one dared celebrate yet. Would she wake? Would she still be Emily? Hours later, as Emily emerged from anesthesia, her family crowded her bedside. Her eyes flickered open, confusion clouding them. She opened her mouth, and instead of laughter, a hoarse whisper slipped out. "Mom!" Her mother collapsed into sobs of relief. Emily's voice was weak, but her mind was there. The doctors exchanged glances of awe. Against all odds, she had survived the unthinkable. Yet victory came with uncertainty. Would the seizures return? Had her memory been spared? Only time would tell. For now, Emily had crossed the thin line between life and death, guided by a combination of science, courage, and sheer chance. The doctors thought the nightmare was over, but fate had one final twist to deliver. The surgical theater was bathed in cold, sterile light as Emily was wheeled in, her fragile body dwarfed by the machines surrounding her. The stakes had never been higher. Months of relentless laughter had pushed her to the brink of death, and now medicine stood at a crossroads: risk experimental deep brain stimulation or attempt a dangerous resection. Every face in the room carried the weight of that impossible choice. The first step was preparation. Electrodes, as thin as threads of hair, were carefully implanted deep into Emily's brain. Guided by real-time imaging, the surgeons worked with microscopic precision, knowing that a single mistake could alter her personality forever. The plan was simple in theory: calm the chaotic storms of electricity sparking from her hypothalamus. In practice, it was like defusing a bomb blindfolded. A hush fell as the devices were activated. Monitors beeped in rhythmic pulses, recording the brain's response. For several tense seconds, there was no change. Then gradually, the violent spikes that had haunted her scans slowed, replaced by steadier patterns. "It's working," whispered a resident. Hope lit the room for the first time in weeks. Hours later, Emily stirred under sedation. When prompted, she squeezed the surgeon's hand without erupting into laughter. For the first time in months, silence wrapped around her fragile body. A nurse's eyes brimmed with tears. "She's quiet," she whispered. "Finally quiet." It felt like a miracle. But everyone knew the battle wasn't over. Their fears proved justified. That night, as Emily lay in the recovery ward, alarms erupted. Her chest convulsed as laughter tore through her throat once more, violent and merciless. The electrodes had dulled the storm, but not silenced it. Doctors rushed in, adjusting currents, increasing stimulation, fighting to cage the firestorm inside her brain. The room reeked of antiseptic and desperation. Emily's father, exhausted and broken, demanded answers. "You promised this would save her," he cried, gripping the neurologist's coat. The doctor's face was grave. "It's helping, but not enough. If we stop here, she will relapse until her body collapses. Surgery may be her only chance." The words sliced the air like a verdict. Her mother collapsed into sobs. "Will she survive surgery?" she asked through tears. The surgeon did not sugarcoat it. "There are risks: loss of memory, speech, even identity. We could save her body but lose the Emily you love." The parents sat paralyzed, holding hands, crushed beneath the unbearable responsibility of choice. Emily, though weak, understood enough. Between gasps, she whispered, "I don't want to die like this. Do it." Her courage silenced the room. Even in her frailest moment, she claimed her own destiny. The decision was made. The lesion had to be removed. There was no other way forward. The surgical team prepared with grim determination. Hours of planning condensed into frantic action as Emily was once again rolled beneath the surgical lights. Surgeons cut carefully, tracing the outlines of the lesion. Millimeter by millimeter, they advanced deeper. Sweat pooled beneath their masks. The atmosphere was suffocating, each second stretched into eternity. At last, the glowing mass revealed itself on the monitor. The lead surgeon steadied his hand. "We're here," he said, his voice breaking the silence. With meticulous precision, the lesion was excised. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the monitors steadied, showing rhythmic patterns where once there had been chaos. The malignant laughter trigger was gone. Relief swept the room, but dread lingered. Had they taken too much? Hours later, Emily was transferred back to recovery. Her family gathered around, hands trembling as they waited. Minutes dragged on until her eyelids fluttered. She opened her eyes slowly, confusion flickering across her face. Her lips parted, and instead of laughter, a weak whisper escaped. "Mom?" Her mother collapsed into tears of joy, clutching her daughter's hand as if to anchor her to life itself. The room filled with cautious hope. Emily was awake, speaking, recognizing faces. She was still herself. But uncertainty clung to the air. Would the seizures return? Would hidden damage reveal itself later? For now, Emily had crossed the razor's edge between life and death, pulled back by courage, science, and something unexplainable. The nightmare seemed over, but fate was not finished with her yet. The first days after surgery were filled with fragile hope. Emily drifted in and out of consciousness, her body weak, but finally free from the relentless convulsions of laughter. Doctors checked her vitals constantly, whispering updates in the hallway. Each breath she took without collapsing into manic laughter felt like a small miracle, as if her body was rediscovering what silence meant. Rehabilitation began almost immediately. Nurses encouraged her to sit up, to move her arms, to whisper words. Her voice was hoarse, her muscles frail, but her mind, though foggy, was present. When a nurse asked her name, Emily whispered it slowly, each syllable uncertain but clear. Relief washed over the staff. She still remembered who she was. Her family's joy was tempered by anxiety. Would the seizures return? Were hidden consequences lurking beneath the surface? Emily's father brought her a photograph of their home, asking softly, "Do you know this place?" She studied it for a long moment, then nodded. "Home," she said. It was a single word, but it meant everything, yet recovery was not linear. On the third night, Emily burst into brief laughter during a routine check. Her mother froze, heart pounding, fearing the nightmare had returned. But the episode faded within seconds, nothing like the catastrophic storms of before. Doctors reassured them this was a reflex, not a seizure. Still, the echo of fear lingered in every corner of the room. Weeks passed, and Emily's strength returned slowly. With therapy, she relearned how to walk steadily, how to write, how to trust her own body again. The first time she managed to walk the length of the corridor unaided, nurses applauded quietly, and her brother whispered, "You're back." Emily smiled through tears. For once, her laughter was soft, human, and safe. Doctors held follow-up scans, searching for residual abnormalities. The images showed a brain scarred but stable, the lesion gone. Emily asked nervously, "Will I ever laugh normally again?" The neurologist smiled gently. "Yes, but now laughter will belong to you, not the illness." It was a sentence she would remember for the rest of her life. Her recovery became a story of resilience, studied by medical teams across the country. Journal articles described her case as one of the rarest neurological phenomena documented. Emily herself became both patient and teacher, her suffering opening new doors of knowledge for medicine. "If my nightmare helps save others," she said once, "then it was worth surviving." As she prepared to leave the hospital, Emily stood by a window overlooking the city lights. Months earlier, she had arrived on a stretcher, trapped in laughter that nearly killed her. Now she stood free, fragile, yet determined. She whispered, "I thought laughter would be my end, but maybe it was my beginning." Her words silenced the room, embedding themselves into the hearts of everyone present. The family took her home, surrounding her with warmth and cautious optimism. Her mother prepared her favorite meals. Her brother joked carefully, watching for signs of relapse. Emily laughed once, just a small giggle, and for the first time in months, no one panicked. The sound was real, authentic, untainted. It was the sound of life reclaimed. But Emily's story wasn't just about survival. It became a reminder that even the most ordinary human expressions, like laughter, can hide deadly mysteries. Her doctors, though proud of their success, admitted they were humbled. Medicine had saved her life, but fate had written the script. And though Emily's nightmare was ending, the world would never forget the girl who laughed her way into a coma and returned. Emily's case left a mark far beyond the hospital walls. It challenged medicine to see laughter not only as joy, but as a possible mask for hidden storms of the brain. For her family, it was a journey through terror and back, proof that love can carry a person even when science falters. And for Emily, it was a rebirth. The moment when laughter was given back, no longer as a curse, but as a gift. Her survival was nothing short of a miracle, though doctors insisted on calling it science. Perhaps it was both. The scar on her brain told one story, but the sparkle in her eyes told another. She had faced death and come back smiling, and in the end, that smile became the greatest testimony to human resilience. What do you think really saved Emily's life? Science or fate? Share your thoughts below, and don't miss our next shocking medical mystery where a patient's harmless childhood habit spirals into a deadly condition no one saw coming.